Hey, it's Drybear, and it's time to check in on some follow-up Q&A on social media and forums that we've seen from the developers following the Campfire stream that we saw on Friday going over the patch 1.1.0 reception. But first, you should come hang out with me on my live stream. I'm live every single day on twitch.tv/Drybear. If you do come hang out with me in the community, the next time you go for groceries, you're going to find that one of the items you were there to get anyway was on a massive sale, so you benefit from saving a little money. We'll start with the main man, Joseph Papiora, the Associate Game Director, responded to a bunch of questions on Twitter, so we'll get through these as well. The first one I want to highlight is important for anyone following my Necromancer leveling guide. There is a bug in the game right now where Imperfectly Balanced, which is a core skill passive in the Necromancer skill tree, is bugged. You can only put 1 point into it, and Joe does confirm this. This isn't some stealth nerf that went into the game. It is a bug that escaped them, and hopefully they get to fix it soon. Next is an opinion that you should just remove CDR from the game and just make spells a fun interval without needing the CDR. And Joe responds saying, this is certainly a position held by several on the team. We'll have more to discuss a little further down the line, but thanks for the feedback. So it is something that's being discussed internally, and maybe this is kind of more down the line of their mismanagement of change, that they do eventually want to remove the reliance on CDR and then make adjustments to the cooldowns themselves rather than needing to stack CDR as the best stat. And a bit of a PSA as well when it comes to storage and stash. It sounds like they're running into more technical issues than just simply adding in the extra bits for storage here. They say that they are storage is expensive, and what they mean is they create a lot of memory overhead. When you see another player in the game, you load them and their entire stash filled with all their items. This is what teams are working diligently to improve so we can have more ASAP. And he's saying this is basically a storage concern. It's a performance concern. Now, I know this isn't, for some people that haven't worked in software or in game development, this probably sounds like a cop-out, but this is how I always describe it to people outside of software development, is that the cool thing about software is that it can do anything. And the biggest shortcoming and the biggest risk and the biggest problem with software is that it can do anything. Software can be designed to work any way that you want. Sometimes it can be very cleverly designed. Sometimes it can be very unfortunately designed. And in this case, it sounds like it's more unfortunate than not. It sounds like you are, for whatever reason, I don't know why they designed it this way, but when you see another player in the open world or when you see another player in town, you're loading that character, all of the memory requirements that come along with that, their player character, their animations, their VFX, their abilities, all of their config values and all of that. And it sounds like you're also, for some reason, loading their stash. I don't know why you would need to load their stash when you see another player in open world, but I guess you are. And obviously that means that if you increase the stash tabs, then you're going to increase the performance load of players inside of towns and inside global events like Helltide, Legion events, and so forth. So they're just trying to be cautious about this, I guess. I know it's not a good excuse for people that don't go along with that, and it probably should never have ended up this way, but it sounds like they are encountering more issues than simply just adding the stash tabs that are kind of going into that. So at least there's a reason for it, and hopefully they can get through re-architecting this soon. Another big question from the dev and from the community is that right now when you upgrade the, when you hit the button to accelerate your battle pass to level it up a tier, there's no confirmation button for it, and some are wondering whether this is malicious or is this some way to get your money, and the response is, we're hot fixing it. It's not intended to work this way. I guess there's a bug. There's also a bug where if you had the previous like Ultimate Edition or Deluxe Edition and you try to upgrade your Battle Pass, it'll ask you to pay for it instead. So they have tons of issues when it comes to the seasonal Battle Pass, and one of them is that you don't get a confirmation. So a PSA, if you're trying to accelerate your Battle Pass, make sure you're wanting to do it before you hit the button, because as of right now, it is actually just doing it automatically. Another spot here is that the goblins don't give enough loot, and here's a clip of someone on Twitter saying that they don't give any loot at all. Very obvious clip of the goblin gets killed and nothing drops, and he seems to agree with this. I think they are trying to make the goblins do more, and actually even in the dev live stream, we saw Joe Shelley talk about having multiple types of goblins like we do in Diablo 3. Another question around CDR that gives us more information on how they're thinking right now. It says, any chance you guys revisit the CDR nerf in the future? On the builds that want it, it feels mandatory. The nerf just makes it for a worse gameplay experience, maybe just increase the base CD of outlier skills. And so his response, which it tells us the direction they're moving in, we're probably not going to revisit CDR, cooldown reduction, as a stat. We do, however, plan to look at cooldowns generally to make sure these active skills feel impactful. We'll keep talking about it on streams because it's pretty important to the feel and flow of combat. So it sounds like they have no intention of revisiting or readjusting the amount of cooldown reduction available on items after the nerf. And if further nerfs or buffs are required for the abilities in the game, it sounds like they're going to want to do that on the abilities themselves. It does seem like without that CDR, some builds feel very slow and some builds still feel very fast. And hopefully they can make some adjustments here, but it sounds like they do not want to revisit the stat on the item itself. Another question around Sorc and survivability and resistances. A reiteration on what they mentioned on the stream. Resistance is something that we're making adjustments for in Season 2. We'll talk more about those changes as we get closer to October. So don't expect any changes on resistances in the near future, but they do want to make a systematic change to how resistances work going into Season 2. So we'll just have to live with the state they're in for now. Another reminder that the density changes for Nightmare Dungeons is planned for patch 1.1.1, which is coming in the next few weeks. So they already made the XP adjustments in 1.1.0. They did the Nightmare Dungeon changes to the threatening aspect, the HP and damage of the mobs inside Nightmare. That already went live in a hotfix. And then for the density changes for Nightmare and Helltide, they want that to go live in the next couple weeks. One of the questions that was asked during the stream was, can we improve the experience of leveling from 75 to 100? The fact that it just feels like you're doing the same thing over and over, and it's very repetitive and slow. The answer is yes from Joe. Players spend a lot of time there, and we think there's a lot of opportunities to make that late game progression more engaging and diverse. EXP gain rate is just one piece of that, which means that they don't necessarily have an action plan right now, but they do think that upcoming content, potentially in Season 2, will help diversify and enrich that experience of the end game leveling process. But it kind of tells us that it doesn't sound like there's anything like specific that's coming in the very short term on that, but they do want to make it better over time. Another question around the Sorc build diversity and a reiteration on what they said on the stream. We're making a number of changes to improve Sorceress aspect options specifically. So again, they are targeting low-performing Sorc and Barb legendaries to try and bring more build diversity to those classes in Season 1 and hopefully in patch 1.1.1 in the next couple weeks. Another great question, which I actually hadn't thought of until this moment, is just thought of something regarding unique jewelry items. Do they have malignant heart sockets as well, or are they the generic gem style? And the response is they can get a random malignant socket, which is brutal. So if you're looking for like Ring of Mendeln or Mother's Embrace, or God forbid you get like Ring of Starless Skies or something, or like a Death Speaker amulet, or like the Rogue Arrow amulet, I guess it's going to get a random malignant socket color, and good luck dropping a new one if you need a different socket on that. So you'll have to swap your rings or your amulet around whatever unique gets that socket. Hopefully it's a socket you want, but I guess that's the way it works. Another big question around Barb and Sorc is that all these two classes are getting around the aspects getting buffed. They seem to be far more broken than aspect buffs alone will fix. And the response from Joe was, we'll have more to talk about later this week, obviously, but I don't suspect that we'll be done tweaking those two classes after 1.1.1. So they do intend to start with bringing up the bottom aspects for Sorc and Barb, but they do want to continue doing that pending how they perform after. Moving on to Adam Fletcher, our lovely stream host for our stream patch notes. A big question, just a separation around the Nightmare Dungeons. I actually got people commenting on my YouTube video saying that, hey, the hotfix is going to include density, and it actually wasn't. A lot of people got this confused, but the Nightmare Dungeons, which have been hotfixed, have had their difficulty reduced. The density is coming in 1.1.1, so an important distinction there. He also clarifies something that I've always wondered, which we kind of have enough evidence to suggest anyways, but it's nice to have a dev confirm this for us. Quick question, do we need to restart our games or return to main menu to apply the fix? Also, is there a way to tell if it's applied? And the answer is no. The hot fixes are rolling, which means that you'll be able to pick them up as you go through the game. You don't have to close out. But he does confirm something very important is when you zone into new places, meaning that you get a loading screen, an actual loading screen, you hop into new servers, which means that this is a way to join a new instance for global events like Hell Tides and for world bosses. It's ways to reset your current instance because you do hop into a new server every time you get a loading screen. So it's nice to have this confirmed. It's not a huge thing here that we know the hotfixes are rolling and they'll pick them up as you go. But it's nice to confirm that, yes, when you get a loading screen, you do change instances, you do change servers, you do change what you're connected to. So it does mean that for some farming options and for some global events and open world events, you can use this to your advantage. Adam also confirms what Joe was talking about earlier, which is any chance for more than one stash slot being given in discussion. It's basically just in place to put the new hearts that are worth saving and therefore not really helping with an already big storage problem. And I guess, I don't know why, but stashes load every time a user hits town, so there's some implications to performance for players. Engineers make optimizations, and with those, we'll be able to add more in the future. So for whatever reason, they need to find some more dynamic ways and some more efficient ways to load the stash information and data for each player that enters town or loads onto your screen so that they don't increase the stash tabs by 10, and then all of a sudden everyone has 30 to 60 second load times, or they start crashing or running into more memory problems that already exist right now. So yeah, confirmed again from this. Another reminder that the gem change is coming for Season 2. This is turning gems into a material that doesn't take up inventory space. It sounds like it requires more rework than you would think. So they have to actually kind of figure out where they're going to put it in the stash tab, how to change all the configurations for it, and maybe there needs to be some new system for selecting it, which would make sense because you think about it, when you go to the occultist to imprint an aspect, either from your inventory or from the codex, there's a UI system that works for that. You can choose whether it's from the codex or whether it's from your inventory and where that comes from. And currently, when you're putting a gem into a piece of armor, you have to grab it from your inventory and place it in the armor. If gems become part of your materials, you need then a new UI screen that allows you to select from your materials and place that gem into a piece of armor, because the current mechanism will no longer be the method of delivery for that. So it makes sense that they have to do some UI work to be able to implement this and work it the way that they want. Adam also confirms that the reason they didn't do the density changes through a hotfix rather than a full client content update is because there would be other implications for the amount of mobs that are in there. There's some performance, and then there's some loading things to go along with this, and all this makes sense to me. So they're going to be looking to do 1.1.1 for the density changes, but they can do number values, which is a config change for the hotfix that makes the nightmare enemies a little bit easier to deal with. And that does it for the dev catch up on the social medias. Hopefully this is enlightening for a lot of people that are wondering what's going on in the backskins, and hopefully allows you to go about your day knowing exactly what the discussions are and what the individual Q&As are without having to hunt down the responses yourself. If you enjoyed yourself today, leave a like down below. You can support me and my work on Patreon and view Patreon exclusive content, link in the description. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.